So just this morning, I saw a tweet that really piqued my curiosity. It's from Nintendo Prime, and it starts with, "How dare you tell me I can't be happy?" ? This is something that kind of got me down a rabbit hole, which got me to this specific video, which is, I'm done with all of this negativity. Now, I'm going to say this. When it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, when it comes to pricing, when it comes to the frustration around both the game price increase that we've already seen announced, the console increasing prices, it doesn't feel good to get squeezed. And I would say that I don't know where you are financially in this world, in this life, but we've all been, I think, felt the squeeze of the last 4 years where costs have gone up and our income has not gone up to match. For example, if you were getting paid $20 more an hour today than you were like 5 years ago, would this feel as egregious? And I would think that it would probably feel a little bit less egregious if we're being honest, but how many people got a $20 an hour raise? I would venture to bet pretty much nobody, or at least the vast majority of people didn't see that kind of increase in their income. I've been getting squeezed. Everybody feels that pain, and it doesn't feel good. And that's where I think a lot of the conversation online really gets hijacked, because the other side of the coin is our brains rightfully understand that the increasing costs, and these are businesses. These aren't charities. They're not here to give it out. But this dialogue, this discourse online has been really interesting to see, because there has just been a lot of frustration. And I think when people look at especially when it comes to the game price increase, because your system technically is your system. You spend your money, you have your system, and outside of, hopefully it continues to work without problems, but it's a fixed cost. Gaming, especially in terms of the hobby itself, has that recurring cost in the terms of buying new games, and that in and of itself is where kind of I think the more the frustration lives when it comes to that game price increase. And I think it's because for some reason in our minds, especially as we've seen time and time again, the increase in quality and the different games they can make with the increase of price. And this last generation, from the Series X and S and the PlayStation 5, I'd argue we haven't seen as big of a leap. We've seen reduced load times, we've seen increased frame rates. All of those things are really great, but in the long run of it, we haven't really seen what we've seen in the past. And now when you look at Mario Kart, until you go hands-on, because while I'm excited about playing some Mario Kart, while I'm looking forward to replacing my 8-year-old Nintendo Switch with the Switch 2, I've been saving up for a couple years, so I have that money ready to go and get that product. I'm looking forward to it, but the question is this an $80 game? And if anybody's watched the live stream of the latest Mario Kart, you just see people spamming, reduce the price, reduce the price, reduce the price. Now, all that being said, I want to let Nintendo Prime here, a Prime brother, kind of take it over, kind of get his thoughts. I haven't seen this video, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to sit back and listen to what's going on, because basically you're either a hater or a shill. Like there doesn't seem to be a lot of mid ground in the discourse. But anyway, take it, Mr. Prime.
Look, there really isn't a lot I could say about Mario Kart World that's going to excite you one way or another, because the bottom line is, everywhere I've gone since April 2nd, it's just a bunch of drop the price, Mario Kart World's not worth $80, and look, now we just had a dedicated Mario Kart World Direct that I absolutely adored and thought was really, really good. Maybe not the greatest Direct ever, of course. I think it's very hard to make that claim, because I think about 5 minutes of the Direct out of 15 was kind of wasted. But that being said, I actually really enjoy everything happening with Mario Kart World. And that sucks about being this person that enjoys this is I can't talk about it without being chastised, without being called a shill, without saying that I'm justifying $80 for all video games. And it's kind
I think that's something where you gotta not worry about what people say in order of content creation. People say, it's Louis C.K., who I guess I'm his spiritual representation in video games. Louis C.K. talked about, like, it's just chatter. It's like before the internet, people just kind of talk. They talk crap. They just, throw out their ideas out there, here, there, and everywhere. now we get to see it and you get that visibility into it. So you got to have a thick skin. And honestly, if you are upset about the price, like that is a valid opinion. If you are okay with the price, that's also a valid opinion. We're going to vote all with our money. I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money. And you can tell me how to spend my money, but it's not your money. So I see a lot of frustration build because a lot of people wish they had power and control over others and their opinions, and it really isn't what it is. Anyway, let's let them continue. We're 53 seconds into it. It's gonna be a fun video.
Kind of weird because I've actually avoided talking about this price stuff in general at the channel. We've had some light conversations on our podcast, but it's a very touchy subject because in the end, we're talking about money, and we don't all have unlimited amounts of it, and we all have to decide for ourselves what the value of a dollar is and what is valuable to us on an individual level.
Yeah, he's absolutely right there.
While it could be absolutely a valid argument to say no video game is worth $80, I also feel that
it really depends on the video game, because you think Baldur's Gate 3 is a good example coming in. People felt that it justified the $70 cost. They felt like that was perhaps the first video game that did. Now, obviously, it's going to vary person to person, but if you think about that, when Baldur's Gate 3 comes out, setting kind of the standard, if that's what your standard is for 70 and you're really not a Mario Kart fan, I can see how that you get to the conclusion that this isn't worth $80. What's going to be interesting to see, especially in the long runs, is Nintendo is notorious for really not reducing the price of their games for a very long time until they hit some insane sales milestone. But physically as well, you go into a used game store and those games hold their value. So it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out in the long run.
That's all about the price you put on your own entertainment. Look, Nintendo's a multi-billion-dollar company. They're not going to go out of business if they price this game at $60. Heck, they wouldn't have gone out of business if they priced the Nintendo Switch 2 at $300. They could have literally taken a loss and made that all back on software sales of $60, $70, $50 games and been just fine. They would make less money and they would be less successful, but they would also be in a good place. Now, would making less money and less successful lead to industry layoffs like everyone else has had to come in their way except for Nintendo? Maybe, or maybe not. It's hard to really know. I think it's okay for corporate entities to not have all of our money, right? I totally get that, and that is a very pro-consumer thing. Things should be cheaper for the consumer. Companies don't need to be trillion-dollar companies like Apple and all of that, right? I mean, the irony of me saying that is I'm rocking an iPhone 16 Pro Max. So
it's like,
I get it. Like,
don't go Marxist on me now, buddy.
Here and defend Nintendo because it's not my job to sell Mario Kart for them. That's their job. And whether or not they have done a good job convincing people to buy Mario Kart World is going to come down to the sales in the end. It's going to come down to your wallets and if you guys decide to spend the money.
I think the other factor here is it's also from a parent and a kid gaming perspective. Nintendo, like, while as a Nintendo fanboy, I've always kind of wanted them to get out of that kind of kid mindset. But as a parent and with the parent controls, it's got to be priced at a friendly, like, accessible level, because this kind of brings up the meme. We got to Switch at home. Like, hey, can I get? No, we have that at home. We have a Switch 2 at home. It's called the Switch 1 or something like that, because from a price perspective, that is the case. Now, for me personally, a couple of thoughts. Kids asked me, as my voice fails, kids asked me for a Switch 2. I said, get a job. Like, that's what I did. I mowed lawns for my SNES, and they're going to go work and clean out like trash bins and cans and stuff like that for the neighborhood to try and save up the money for a Switch 2. I think that's a fair, thing. I think that's a good life lesson as well. It's interesting to bring the SNES up in my work as a kid to do that, is that the SNES is actually technically more expensive than the Switch 2 due to inflation. And that goes back to the fact that we're all getting squeezed and it's not fun in this regards. The other thing I'd add is that if you have debt right now, like, this is the worst time. Video games have been this escape, especially from all the kind of chaos in our daily lives. I'd encourage you pay off your debts. What we did to do that here in this family is we focused in on the smallest debt, worked our way to the largest debt. It took a couple years, but it has been a game-changing aspect where we don't borrow money to buy video games and entertainment product. We don't borrow money for anything, thankfully, and knock on wood, we'll hopefully never have to do that again. But that's what I would encourage you guys, especially if you're feeling squeezed, because everybody wants your money, and they're going to try to get you to get into debt, which is a real trap, especially when it comes to gaming. And I've been there in the past. It's not fun, and that's why I always try to encourage people to get it going, because it can be done. You got to believe that it's possible, because whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. So I would encourage you to think that you can do these things and get it done.
But what really sucks right now is we're on the precipice of a brand new generation of Nintendo that by all means seems really exciting. If you take the Mario Kart $80 controversy and you set that to the side, you take that and you put it over here, what you're left with is actually a lot of really great things happening. You're left with things like Donkey Kong Bonanza. People seem legitimately excited about this, and there's buzz coming out of the Switch 2 experiences that this has the potential to at least be in the conversation for Game of the Year. I don't know if it's going to end up that good, and if the whole game's experience actually holds up, but people seem genuinely excited about it, and no one seems to care that it's $70. Maybe that's because it's been normalized for a long time. I don't know, but people seem really, really excited.
I think also being that it's kind of a new IP, even though it's Donkey Kong, is a factor. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of variable pricing in the long run, namely because I think new IPs are going to come in much cheaper, be more accessible in terms of pricing, whether you think 70 is not. I think this probably would be a $60 game if it didn't star a classic Nintendo character, for example. And I think we're going to see a lot more variable pricing going forward, which honestly I think is good. We've seen tons of success with $40 games. And I think that in and of itself, like the goal is to sell as many copies at the right price. That's market economics 101.
Excited about it. It also helps. We haven't had a 3D Donkey Kong game since, the N64, 1999, like 26 years. It's been a long time. So people seem genuinely excited about that. People are glowing about the haptic feedbacks and the mouse controls on things like Drag and Drive, even though not everyone really likes that experience. They do like the feel of the controls and how it works in that game. And we're actually hearing a lot about people liking the haptic feedback and mouse controls in a traditional shooting game like Metroid Prime 4. So people seem genuinely excited about the platform, the third-party games, even if they're not running at the greatest like frame rates and stuff right now, they're still running fairly decent, especially compared to similar hardware such as a Steam Deck. And in the end, everything seems to be pointing up for Nintendo, except for this big anchor around their necks that their best-selling franchise of all time has a brand new mainline game coming for the first time in 11 years on Nintendo Switch 2 at launch, and it's probably going to end up being the best-selling game on Nintendo Switch 2. But people can't get over that $80 price tag. I'm not here to tell you that $80 is too much. I'm not here to tell you that $80 is worth it. I can only talk for myself, and I'm actually glowing about this game. If you had told me, let's say 3 months ago, that Mario Kart World was not just a launch game for Nintendo Switch, but it would be an open world collectathon, I would have said you're crazy. That sounds like something out of a dream world. That sounds like I am, on the 4chans and just pulling the random, rumors out of a hat of pipe dreaming. And you know what? That's what it is. We have hundreds of missions announced today. Hundreds. Well, just think about that. You have the coins to collect, right? We have those question block panels to run over and unlock new areas. And
I feel like there's a part of this right now that he's trying to justify it to himself, and I think every especially hardcore fanboy kind of goes through that. What will be interesting to see is that if this game has buyer's remorse. The only way to know is buying the game, playing the game, and deciding if that's something that you want to continue to keep playing. As a family man with 6 kids, we're going to be playing a bunch of Mario Kart, especially if I'm spending $500 on it, right? It's like, oh guys, this is what are we doing tonight? We're going to do some Mario Kart, kids. Because especially when you think about the cost, while I can use some of my existing Pro controllers, while I've got 2 working, 1 failed, I think I'm definitely going to have to pick up 2 more the new Pro controllers. It's an expensive hobby. Oh my gosh.
Try new things, and that's all in that open world experience. That's before we even get to the multiplayer and the community features. And basically, this is looking like the Mario Kart of my dreams. Sans the fact I wouldn't mind, I guess, if they crossed over with Nintendo IP. Maybe that happens with DLC. I know they first dabbled with it with the DLC on Wii U for Mario Kart 8, and I would like to see them maybe dabble in that again for DLC for this game, but can't even talk about that because we start talking about DLC, you're going to start talking about them charging even more money. Is that DLC going to be $20? It's going to be $25. Yeah. Will it be $40 because the base game is $80? And I know there's an argument about the $80 thing that, well, yeah, a majority of people at launch probably won't be paying $80 for Mario Kart World because there is a bundle, and it looks like the majority of units available in the U.S. will be that bundle, which would knock the game down to $50.
But I'm going after.
Obviously, it's a limited time bundle. It only runs through fall. That doesn't change the MSRP on the eShop. That doesn't change the MSRP at retail of $80. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and make that $50 argument. I'm just going to note that I'm not paying $80 for Mario Kart World. I'm paying $500 for the system and the game. And I obviously am going to find that worth it. And I really, really enjoy Mario Kart. This game looks like everything I always wanted Mario Kart to be. So I knew no matter what happened at the Direct today, we were going to be just avalanched with negative videos. Negative videos, negative videos, negative videos. There's no shortage of negative videos about Nintendo Switch 2 out there, whether they're based in reality. And look, I think it's fair if you want to criticize the cost of games. I think that is totally okay. I also think it's totally okay if you don't mind it, or if maybe you're sick of the conversation. And that's probably why this video exists. I'm sick.
To kind of add, and not to, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but in a world, this is all on demand, right? Like, you don't have to watch somebody's content. You don't owe, for me, example, you don't owe me this watch time. You don't owe me anything, right? I'm sitting down making this content because I want to. The idea is that when you can avoid it, I think that's a we got to talk about personal responsibility here, guys. Like, if your feed is filled with a bunch of negativity stuff, interact with stuff that you want that's opposite of that. These algorithms want to keep you engaged. They want to keep you locked in, and I get it, because they want to make money off of you. You're the product, etc. Like, so just note that if you're feeling overwhelmed, just take a step away, go outside. Like, I guarantee you, it's going to improve your overall mood.
Sick of the conversation, and if I'm getting sick of it, I can't be the only one. And the problem is, that's going to make people think I'm a corporate shill.
Of course.
They already think it because I make Nintendo content and have Nintendo in my username, on my hat, yada yada. Okay, look, people are going to think I'm a shill anyways,
no matter what,
because of what I do for a living, because I happen to enjoy Nintendo's products. I don't enjoy everything Nintendo does. I have regretted purchases I've made from Nintendo. I spent $60 of my own hard-earned money on Princess Peach Showtime. Yeah, I regret that purchase. I wish I never made it. I just had high hopes because I'm a feeder kid and I love the aesthetic, and it just turned out, nope, not the game for me. Even though I played a lot of it, it didn't feel worth my money, and I never beat it or finished it because I wasn't having fun.
Yeah.
I missed a lot of that Nintendo charm that you used to get from some of those spin-off games. Thankfully, there was other games that were better last year, and we did get Xenoblade Chronicles X this year, but bottom line is, obviously, we were in a transition period. I should have known better, even though it was one of their few new games last year. I should have known better. That, like, yeah, this is the C and B tier teams that are just filling out the slate for Nintendo. Could have stuck with tried and true like Thousand Year Door and the rest. So I sit back and think about the Switch 2, and I'm so damn excited. Like, I've never been more excited for a system launch than I am right now. This is the system where Nintendo enters the realm of 4K, where they touch the realm of variable refresh rates and 120 FPS, where we're going to see...
I love Nintendo. I love Nintendo games. What I'm going to say is, like, Nintendo Prime here sounds like he's coping a little bit, because we're all, like, from Nintendo fans, still, like, I feel 10 years. Like, I got super excited about Game Chat, a feature from 2006. Here in 2025 for Nintendo. Like, Nintendo takes their time and they dole it out. So it's like, yeah, 4K. I'm probably going to be playing this thing in handheld mode more than anything else. It's 1080p. Like, I'm glad that you're excited for it. I still think, like, Super Mario Wonder on my Switch on my 4K TV looks absolutely fine. I'm not sitting here, I don't know, I'm not a pixel counter person, but yes, I'm glad they're stepping into 4K. But this is Nintendo. they're gonna find a way to Nintendo it up. Like it is essentially a verb at this point.
What we always wanted games to be, even from Switch 1, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, are going to look better on this system than ever, with updates that I actually don't have to pay extra for it because I already own the games and the DLC and have NSO.
Okay.
But
yeah.
I get to see them the way that you could really only see them in emulators before, and then have additional features on top with the phone app. I do think the phone app's a little wonky. Kind of wish it was maybe a local thing on the system, but hey, it's better than just not existing at all. I can say that. And obviously all the other Switch 2 editions that are getting extra content and DLC, I'll judge those on an individual basis because, I got to see what the extra content is. And I have to note some things, like when people talk about $80, I heard someone criticize things like Cyberpunk 2077 being a $70 game on Nintendo Switch 2, which includes the full DLC. And it's weird because when I go to the PlayStation store, it's $50 for Cyberpunk, but that doesn't include the DLC. The DLC is sold separately for $30, making that an $80 experience to get what we're getting for $70 on June 5th at launch. Now, I suspect there'll be a sale. Prices might lower by then. And I'm not going to say Cyberpunk hasn't had a bunch of sales over the years and bundles and the ability to get it cheaper, but I'm just telling you what it's listed at right now on PlayStation. So if it's $80 there, then $70 doesn't seem so bad. And I understand that pricing's all relative and value's all relative. No matter what I say, it's not going to make you want things more. It's not going to make me look like anything other than just a corporate shill. And I am of mindset that it is not my job to tell you how to spend your money.
Good.
If you don't think Mario Kart World is worth $80, you don't think the Switch 2 is worth $450, you don't have to buy it. And that's okay. I bought the Wii U and a bunch of games for that, and a lot of other people didn't. And I wasn't mad that other people didn't buy it, because the bottom line is Nintendo didn't do a good job selling it to most consumers. It didn't appeal to people, so they didn't spend their money. They didn't find it worth their money. Some people didn't even know what the damn thing was. And again, that's all on Nintendo. It is not my job to sell their products. It is my job to be honest with you about my feelings. And my feelings right now are, I'm just kind of tired. And what I'm tired of,
I think a lot of people are,
is just the negativity. I'm legitimately excited for something, and it feels like half the internet is trying to tell me
it's got to be hard, because like I get excited about things that not everybody else is excited about, so you want to kind of talk about it, and then like, because anybody can reply, you say anything in public can say anything back. To get that kind of negativity, I could see how that they could get frustrated, because it's like, they're excited. You want to share in this excitement. You want to be a part of something big. But right now, the movement within gaming is hyper negative for many reasons: economic, cultural, like etc. Like you could pick any kind of bucket, and there's going to be something that kind of falls into that. So, yeah, I think that's just where. Oh my gosh, I don't know a solution, right? Because I guess call your other Nintendo fans, or you end up creating your own echo chamber in which that you then aren't exposed to these other ideas. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation, especially when it comes to online discourse. You just can't let it get you down. If you're excited for the Switch 2, if you're excited for Mario Kart, then you're not alone. Like I am, but at the same time, like I can't separate my excitement from the understanding that this was kind of a shock for a lot of people. People like the fact, if I didn't know that how inflation has really hurt a lot of families, that incomes haven't gone up, like all of that stuff weighs in on it, and so it's hard to be excited all the time, especially when they're asking for more money from you now. I'm personally looking forward to playing Tears of the Kingdom. I held off because I didn't want to play it at 20 frames per second. I know emulation is a thing, but I'm looking forward to being able to step into that game, really kind of experiencing these games at a better frame rate, at a higher quality. And that's what I'm really excited about. For me, that's worth the cost, especially because if you guys actually saw my physical Switch 2, it's pretty beat up. It's ready. So it's like, well, I'm not going to buy a Switch 1. Might as well buy a Switch 2. And in a bit of breaking news, we actually now have the official pre-order date of April the 24th, and prices of the Switch will not be going up, but they do warn that the price of the accessories could be going up. So this is good news for all of the tariff news that has been going on in the last couple of weeks. And so just wanted to share that information with you guys. Really thrilled. But let's jump back into this video.
I'm wrong for being excited. I'm wrong for supporting Mario Kart World, even though I'm not buying it for $80. I'm going to get the bundle, right? I can sit there and try to tell you it's probably worth $80 for me, that I'll put 1,000 hours in, which is like 2 cents an hour. And for the amount of entertainment, it's definitely worth the money. And I can make those justifications. I could try to bring up inflation calculators and all of that.
I'm definitely a dollar per hour of joy when video games. That's why video games still, in my mind, are the most value proposition for entertainment as of something like the movies. I took my kids to see the Minecraft movie. Like I said, I got a lot of kids. It was like over $150 for less than 2 hours versus, you know, a couple $100 here and there on the Switch and thousands and thousands of hours. Like it really does, in my mind, justify the cost in terms of the fact that the dollar per hour of joy, but that's going to vary different from each and everybody else.
I think that's all just silly, because obviously pricing is all relative to the rest of the industry, and pricing is obviously relative to your own wallet. Maybe you just factually can't afford $80 games.
Yeah.
Get it. Maybe that means you can only buy one game a year if you're going to participate.
Yeah.
I get it. Maybe you don't have a local library that has free rentals. Maybe you don't want to rent games at all, so you don't want to take advantage of a service like GameFly, which now looks more appealing than ever. And I feel like it's looked pretty appealing for many, many years. Really,
or things like Game Pass.
PlayStation and Xbox launched their current generation systems. I just want to express that I understand why you're all upset. People think I am not considering the opinions of others, and I am. I actually am. I actually understand why people are upset about the prices. I get it. I get all the justifications. I get the yelling and screaming into the microphones about how Mario Kart didn't do anything to justify this price point. Dude, I get it. I actually am listening. It's hard not to when I've been bombarded with it for 2 weeks. So maybe I'm just tired of that. Maybe I'm tired of that conversation. Because you know what? Nothing's going to change. Mario Kart World is $80. The Nintendo Switch 2 is $450. Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70. Yeah, Nintendo isn't including the Breath of the Wild DLC into the Switch 2 edition when they should, which some people are then trying to twist that and to argue that it's worth $90, but nobody's saying Cyberpunk is $80 when their DLC is not packed in. Welcome to the industry. Double standards. Nobody says Cyberpunk is an $80 game, but that's what it costs if you want the DLC. Nobody says that. So why are we holding Breath of the Wild to those standards? I'll tell you why. There's a few reasons. One, it's popular to hate Nintendo. People want them to fail. Two, people do have legit concerns. And when you mix haters and wanting Nintendo to fail with legitimate fans who are just really upset that things are jumping in price so drastically from a $60 standard to an $80, although Nintendo technically hasn't made it an $80 standard, although it feels like they have, because like Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition's $80. So like that's crazy to a lot of people. And then the relaunching Switch games, Switch 1 games, extra content for $70. It's just, I get it. It's frustrating. We don't have unlimited money. And it's not just happening with Nintendo. Sony just raised their prices of PlayStation 5 in Canada and a bunch of other countries. Not necessarily the system, although some countries they did literally raise the price of the system. They just jacked the price significantly of PlayStation Plus in Canada. You think none of that's going to come to the United States, that we're not going to see PlayStation 5 get more expensive for the second time, that we're not going to see?
That's what I've also been asking when it comes down to the price of video games and the next gen consoles. I remember being called crazy that I was saying like I could see next gen coming in at, you know, 700, 800, depending on what they go with, right? Like if Xbox kind of goes more with the kind of hybrid handheld approach that's rumored, yada yada yada. We don't know. We're gonna know soon enough. I think we're gonna have a good idea. Maybe this E3, when I say E3, Summer Games Fest, whatever we call it now, and yeah, and I think that's gonna be interesting to see. I would be absolutely flabbergasted if next gen PS5, 6, and Xbox whatever comes in at 500, right? Because like we see the PS5 Pro coming in at 700, and I think that if you're going to have a system that's more powerful than that, like that's just where I'm at. time will tell. Time will tell, but I don't think we're going backwards, and it sucks because, man, I tell you, I think people just want a game.
See the prices get jacked up again for like the 4th time. Yeah, everything's getting more expensive, and I don't like it. So maybe I am not going to be a multi-platform console gamer moving forward. Maybe I won't buy a PlayStation 6 and have a Switch 2. Maybe it's one or the other, because even I'm feeling the crunch. I don't have unlimited money.
Pick and choose.
I really don't. I know we're giving away a Nintendo Switch 2, and you can go ahead.
PC, like that's where it's like you see more and more people migrating over to PC. Yeah, they don't have the Nintendo IP, but especially if you don't have like kids, I could see how sometimes you can be like, I guess I'm just not going to play the Mario game, right? I guess I'm just not going to play that exclusive. And that is really what I am watching for from an industry and analyst perspective. Because despite being called crazy, these predictions I keep making continue to keep proving out to be true because of just economics. It's simple mathematics when it's all said and done, and it takes out the emotion from it. But there, within video game, there is this same thing even within crypto. Not to say I want crypto in video games, but there is this kind of almost religious kind of connection that people have. This community, like maybe religion isn't the right word. Community, like I belong to this. This is a part of who I am. And that ends up, I think, why you end up seeing so much vitriol that plays out in online. Just like, have you ever seen the meme with the dogs, behind the gate, and they're really, rock and rolling, and you take that gate away, and all of a sudden there's a real physical presence and danger. All of a sudden everybody's respectful, right? So I think anonymity. I think the fact is that this is all digital, tends to be where it becomes more venom than it ends up becoming a real discussion.
Go ahead and enter down in the pinned comment in the description, and we're actually going to give away a second one, and giving away 2 of those plus buying my own, and heck, I'm paying for Eric's as well. That's already $2,000 down the bucket, right?
If we get to 100,000 subscribers here, I'll give away a Switch too.
That sucks.
I'll do that.
4 Switches, it's $1,200, $800 cheaper. But this is a new generation,
or an equivalent terms of cost, like
every time we enter a new generation lately,
Amazon,
it's led to prices going up. When we entered this generation with Switch, prices kind of stayed the same, but then PlayStation and Xbox launched their new stuff, and things bumped to $70, and suddenly we're talking about $500 consoles. $500 consoles, which was seemingly unheard of outside of the $599 stuff that happened with PlayStation 3, which didn't work for Sony. Then we get to now where we're having a Nintendo system launching at the most expensive dollar price ever at $450. And now we're seeing a game, the killer launch game, this Mario Kart World game behind me, at $80.
Yeah.
I understand that. But I hope you can understand that just because a lot of you have this deep feeling and passion and are so vehemently against what Nintendo is doing, and it's also okay for the rest of us who, are kind of tired of it, to just be excited. I'm so excited for everything Mario Kart World has to bring, everything Nintendo Switch 2 has to bring. And I know you're going to say, well, Nate, Nintendo must be paying you. God, if they are. I don't know where that paycheck is. I mean, and yeah, my career on YouTube, it's fair to say it's dependent on Switch 2 being successful. But even if it's not, even if Switch 2 tanks,
you shouldn't make content creation a career.
I'm still going to be making videos. I'm still going to be talking Nintendo.
Just be a fan.
Because I still really like their games. I still really like their products. I don't always like all their business decisions. I don't have to agree with everything.
Facts
and it's
to
up
that.
to me to decide what things are worth my money and what things aren't. If Princess Peach Showtime comes out and it is $60, like there's a second one, or it's $80 or $70, you think I'm even going to buy it? I might not even buy it for $40.
Yeah.
I learned my lesson. I ain't going to buy that game. Maybe I buy...
That's why the argument, especially that I've seen made in terms of don't buying a Nintendo Switch 2, I've seen a couple of... I haven't seen the videos, but I've seen a couple of things kind of pop up in my feed since the announcement. And it's like, that's where I can bet the argument ends up being, is that if we don't support this price point as gamers, they don't sell games, and thus they have to adjust, which is absolutely true. Markets are going to respond, right? Because if you end up putting a price on a video game too high, you actually sell less and thus make less money. That's where the argument in terms of the price point of this game is absolutely true, because it then sets a new standard. If plenty of people make it, buy it at this price point, this obviously means that everything else from this point forward. Of course, game developers are going to see that. Some are going to try to price their point at that, and their game is absolutely not going to have that value proposition, and it's not going to sell. So there's going to be plenty of mistakes people make. But yeah.
Less Nintendo games this generation because I'm more picky about where my money goes. That doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have fun. And that doesn't mean that people that feel that way should be raining down on people who are actually excited. And I get it. Everyone's taking a principled stand. Well, I want to take a principled stand myself.
That's a cool ad.
And that principled stand is it's okay to be excited. It is. It's also okay to ignore all the negativity out there. It's also okay to not give a shit if people are trying to tell you how to spend your money. Everyone thinks they have the answers. Everyone thinks they know better. In an industry with constant layoffs, an industry that seems to be collapsing in on itself, and it's not just due to game pricing. A lot of it's due to game budgets and everything else and bad management and corporate greed. And there's a lot that led to the situation that the AAA industry in particular is sitting in. And Nintendo has somehow avoided all of that, where they don't have any layoffs, they aren't doing anything, and they're just the most profitable they've ever been during the Switch generation. Nintendo bucked the trends because they did things differently. They don't lower their game prices. They are charging $80 for Mario Kart. Why? Because it's so popular they think they can get away with it. I'm not stupid. We know why. But they're probably right. Just like if Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and charges $100, it'll probably get away with it. It's so damn popular. Yeah, they'll probably get away with it.
Yeah.
And if we're honest, a lot of us have spent way more money on other things.
Yeah.
$80 on Ring Fit Adventure. How about all the digital deluxe editions that exceed $80 all the time? We might pay to get early access to have broken games. And how much of us have bought $70 games and they're broken day one and only fixed with $20 DLC that comes out 2 months later? Or how many of us have spent $60, $70 on a game only for it to be incomplete at launch and have day one DLC, which was factually cut content from the game that they're piecemealing to us because they didn't think the price of the game at $70 was worth it. They needed to actually charge you more, but then we don't count that against the standard price of the game because, hey, that's optional stuff. You don't have to have it, but then it was built before the game came out. You know,
he highlights an incredible piece of information that has been going on for a while. So beyond inflation, beyond all these things, all of these things have been just building on themselves, right? So it's kind of in a way where at some point enough people have been canceled that the cancelers are the minority again. It's wait a minute, we're canceled. Okay, cool. I guess we'll just keep doing what we're doing, right? And so that is what we're seeing. It's enough people have been burned and frustrated that it has led to this coalition of gamers, and for whatever reason, whether it's financial, whether it's just DLC, whether it's fighting against corporate greed, it has created this unifying, and much more louder body. And then, they're not wrong, right? We vote with our wallets, and the best way we communicate because we don't have any kind of consumer advocate, right? The ESRB is there to represent the companies, the corporations, but we vote with our wallets. The only consumer advocacy we have is by picking and choosing. And that's when it comes down to it. I'm not going to judge you whether you decide not to or to play or buy a video game. We'll have a real discussion about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love that about gaming and gaming culture. It's one of the reasons why I love being a content creator. But yeah, I get it. He's not wrong. There are problems and the comeuppance. And the thing is, the reality is, the people who do the work are usually going to be the people who suffer. The people who are in leadership making bad decisions, they're going to have their golden parachutes. We can say that sucks. We can say that it's not right, but it also is the reality. And we got to live in and focus in on the reality of the game as it is in reality, where we are at. And so all that being said is that you will get laid off. You will probably get screwed over. And the best way you can kind of defend against that is to not be reliant on any of these jobs. That's why I really kind of focus in on getting out of debt, because if you don't owe anybody any money and your boss is a dick, bye. I don't have to be here. You actually find, and the weird reality is that when you don't owe people money, you actually end up making more money. Because it turns out you get to pick and choose. You're not relying on that job. You can actually counter if they offer you a raise or don't offer you a raise. You got options. You have leverage. And that's what we need within gaming. More and more leverage.
You know why I didn't care they didn't talk about DLC in the Mario Kart Direct today? Because I'd rather there not be talking about that before the game's even in our hands.
Yeah, there's got to be
Why would you
DLC.
be telling me about DLC when I can't even play what's currently available?
Especially if you can't buy the DLC right out the gate, right?
Until several months after the game comes out. I want to know all the ideas and everything you had got put into the game.
Yeah, and then it's like,
I'm not
hey,
saying you
let's
can't
make
have
more.
a roadmap, but that roadmap shouldn't even be touched right now. Maybe there'll be other continents. Maybe they'll add in a Zelda world and a Donkey Kong world, and they'll cross over a bunch of Nintendo IP like they did with Mario Kart 8. Maybe. But I don't need to hear about that right now. I want to know that we're getting the best damn game we could. And I think we are. This, to me, looks like possibly the greatest Mario Kart game ever made. And it's still, people are going to say it's incomplete because it doesn't have all the DLC. Well, you know what? DLC is extra content.
Should be extra content.
Base game should stand on its own.
Yeah.
People look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe before the DLC and go, look how amazing this was, forgetting it was actually $85 in spending to get to that point. Because it was actually a game that launched on Wii U, and it was fantastic at launch. And then they added $25 DLC, and it got praised for being really good DLC at a time when really bad DLC was coming from so many companies. $85 spent before you ever got that $60 deluxe version. That's not how Mario Kart 8 started. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe became an incredible value specifically because the Wii U tanked. And maybe a Switch 2 tanks. There'll be Mario Kart World Deluxe that comes out on Switch 3 or whatever the next platform is. And that will be the one that seems like an incredible value because that's going to pack in more and more content than they charge $80 for this. And maybe you get it for $60. I don't know. What I do know is I'm excited.
Yeah.
So this is the last video I'm going to make addressing this. We talk about it a bit on the podcast tonight as well. Debbie Downers be damned. And I'm not even saying you don't have justifications. What I am saying is I have just as many justifications to be excited. I've got one life to live, man. I'm at my midlife. And you know what?
Woo.
I'm going to choose to be happy.
Midlife, baby.
Mario Kart makes me smile. I was smiling like during that entire direct. It's hard to put a price on happiness.
It feels like people have been beating him up.
You guys so much for tuning in. And I'll catch you in the next video.
Fantastic. I really appreciated that. I'm going to drop this guy a like. The link to this video is in the description if you guys want to go check it out for yourself. I hope, if you didn't want my commentary and whatnot, then there you go. But yeah, like this has been a pretty big conversation. It's interesting to see. Something that I've kind of expected for a little bit. I was hoping that the Switch 2 would have come in at 400. I think 400 for whatever reason just seems more doable. 450, and especially with their added $10 demo thing like that does feel pretty crappy, and people shouldn't buy that. Like that game should, hopefully nobody buys that specific game, and Nintendo's like, we should just pack this in, pack it in, let people kind of hang out with it, just like they did with Wii Sports. That seems pretty crappy. Like, it's Nintendo can do some good things. They can do some bad things. They can make some really great games. They can make some, okay mid games. But yeah, like that's where we're at. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This has been Ginger Prime. My name is Brian. And I just wish you guys all the best. We talked about paying off your debt. We talked about I want to especially kind of reach out to all those my fellow men out there, my fellow strugglers. Like life can be hard. But I want to encourage you guys, it's worth living, and you're worthy of love. Like, so do not listen to these negative voices in your head that tell you that you're alone, that you're not worthy. We can lie to ourselves. Our brains lie to ourselves all the time. So focus in on you. If you need help, if you need support, it is not a sign of weakness to reach out. In fact, it's a sign of strength, and I know you can be strong. I know you can believe in yourself. Anyway, guys, until next time, God bless you. Take care.